The white silk wedding dress rustled against the cold metal as Emma pressed herself deeper into the darkness of the car trunk. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure someone would hear it. Through the tiny crack where the trunk wasn't fully closed, she could see him, her fiancé, David, the man she was supposed to marry in exactly 2 hours. But he wasn't alone. David stood in the parking garage, his expensive suit jacket thrown over his shoulder, laughing with a woman Emma had never seen before. And then, he kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A deep, long kiss that made Emma's stomach twist into knots. But that wasn't the worst part. The woman pulled back and smiled up at David, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly. "Don't worry," the woman said, loud enough for Emma to hear from her hiding spot. "After today you'll be a rich man. Then we can finally be together. You, me, and our baby." Emma's hand flew to her mouth to stop the gasp that wanted to escape. The trunk felt like it was spinning. Her driver, Marcus, had been right to warn her. But how did he know? And what else was about to unfold? Everything Emma thought she knew about her perfect life, her perfect wedding, her perfect fiancé, it was all about to shatter like broken glass. But how did Emma end up hiding in a car trunk on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life? Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And if you want to know what happens next, make sure you keep watching until the end. 3 months earlier, Emma Richardson was living what everyone called a fairy tale life. At 26 years old, Emma was the only daughter of Robert Richardson, one of the wealthiest men in the city. Her father owned Richardson Industries, a huge company that made parts for airplanes. Emma had grown up in a mansion with 12 bedrooms, a swimming pool shaped like a heart, and more toys than she could ever play with. But despite all the money and fancy things, Emma wasn't spoiled or mean. Her mother, Sarah, had died when Emma was only 8 years old, and that loss had made Emma kind and thoughtful. She remembered what it felt like to hurt, so she tried never to make others hurt. Emma worked at her father's company, not because she had to, but because she wanted to do something meaningful with her life. She managed the charity division, helping to give money to schools and hospitals. She loved her job, even though some people whispered that she only had it because of her last name. Her father, Robert, was her whole world. He was a tall man with silver hair and warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. After Emma's mother died, Robert never remarried. He always said, "I had my true love. That was enough for one lifetime." Robert loved Emma more than anything. He called her "my little sunshine," even though she was all grown up now. Every Sunday they had breakfast together, just the two of them, where they would eat pancakes and talk about everything from business to silly jokes. But Robert was getting older. At 68, he was starting to slow down. He walked with a cane now because of his bad knees, and sometimes Emma would catch him looking tired in a way that worried her. That's when David Chun came into their lives. David was 32 years old, handsome in the way movie stars are handsome, with perfectly styled black hair, bright white teeth, and a smile that made people trust him instantly. He wore expensive suits and drove a sleek black sports car that turned heads everywhere he went. David had started working at Richardson Industries 6 months before as the new vice president of sales. He was smart and charming, and within weeks he had impressed everyone at the company, especially Robert. "That young man is brilliant," Robert would say at dinner. "He's already increased our sales by 15%. Sharp as a tack, that one." David seemed perfect. He was always polite, always knew the right thing to say, and he treated Emma like she was made of precious glass. He would bring her coffee in the morning, exactly how she liked it, with 2 sugars and a splash of cream. He would leave little notes on her desk that said things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "You make every day brighter." When David asked Emma to have dinner with him one evening after work, she said yes. How could she not? He was handsome, successful, and her father already loved him. Their first date was at the fanciest restaurant in the city, the kind of place where the menus don't have prices and the waiters wear white gloves. David ordered for both of them in perfect French, which impressed Emma even though she had no idea what he was saying. "You're amazing, you know that?" David had said, reaching across the table to hold her hand. "Beautiful, kind, smart." I can't believe I'm lucky enough to be here with you. Emma had blushed. She wasn't used to compliments like that. Most men were too intimidated by her father's money to even talk to her, let alone call her amazing. They started dating officially after that night. David would take Emma to art galleries, fancy parties, and weekend trips to the beach. He was always attentive, always romantic. He would open doors for her, pull out her chair, and tell her she looked beautiful even when she was just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. After 3 months of dating, David proposed. It happened on a Saturday evening in the mansion's garden. Emma's father had thrown a small party to celebrate a big business deal, and about 50 guests were mingling around the pool, drinking champagne and eating tiny fancy appetizers. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, David clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. "Excuse me, everyone," David said, his voice carrying across the garden. "I have something important to do." The crowd went quiet. Emma, who had been talking to one of her father's business partners, turned to see David walking toward her with a strange look on his face, nervous but excited. Before Emma could ask what was happening, David dropped down on one knee right there in front of everyone. Emma's heart stopped. "Emma Richardson," David said, pulling out a small velvet box and opening it to reveal a huge diamond ring that sparkled in the sunset light. "From the moment I met you, I knew you were special. You're kind, beautiful, and you make me want to be a better man. I love you more than words can say. Will you marry me?" The whole garden erupted in gasps and whispers. Emma looked down at David, then over at her father, who was beaming with happiness, his eyes wet with tears. "Yes," Emma heard herself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." David slipped the ring on her finger, stood up, and kissed her while everyone clapped and cheered. Emma felt like she was floating. This was really happening. She was getting married. Her father rushed over and hugged them both. "I'm so happy for you, sunshine," Robert whispered in Emma's ear. "David's a good man. He'll take care of you." The wedding was planned for 3 months later. Robert insisted on paying for everything, and when Robert Richardson paid for something, it was going to be spectacular. The wedding was set to take place at the Grand Rose Hotel, the fanciest hotel in the entire city. The ballroom could hold 500 guests. Emma's dress cost more than most people's cars. A gorgeous white gown with thousands of tiny pearls sewn into the fabric by hand. It had taken 3 people 5 months to make it. The invitations were sent out on thick cream-colored paper with gold lettering. The flowers were being flown in from Ecuador. The cake was 7 tiers tall. Everything was perfect. During those 3 months of wedding planning, David became even more involved in Richardson Industries. Robert, who was feeling more and more tired lately, started letting David make big decisions for the company. "I trust him," Robert told Emma one Sunday over pancakes. "He's got a good head on his shoulders. Besides, when you two are married, he'll practically be family. He should know how to run things in case I'm not around forever." "Dad, don't talk like that," Emma said, but a chill ran through her. Her father looked more tired every day. The cane he used wasn't just for his knees anymore. He seemed to need it to hold himself up. "I'm just being practical, sunshine," Robert said with a sad smile. "I won't be here forever, but knowing you'll have David to take care of you, that gives me peace." Emma didn't like thinking about a world without her father in it, so she pushed those thoughts away and focused on the wedding. Meanwhile, David was spending more and more time at the office. Sometimes he would come to bed long after Emma was asleep, smelling like expensive cologne and coffee. When Emma asked what kept him so busy, David would kiss her forehead and say, "Just taking care of business, my love. I want everything to be perfect for us." Emma believed him. Why wouldn't she? David had never given her a reason not to trust him. Marcus, Emma's driver, had worked for the Richardson family for 20 years. He was a quiet man in his 50s with kind eyes and gray hair. He had driven Emma to school when she was little, had taken her to her mother's funeral, had been there for every important moment of her life. Marcus didn't talk much, but Emma knew he cared about her like she was his own daughter. About 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma noticed Marcus watching David with a strange expression. It wasn't quite suspicion, But it wasn't trust either. It was the look someone gets when they see something that doesn't quite add up, like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. "Is everything okay, Marcus?" Emma asked one afternoon when he was driving her home from a dress fitting. Marcus's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. For a moment, she thought he was going to say something important. But then he just nodded and said, "Yes, Miss Emma. Everything's fine." But Emma could tell everything was not fine. A few days later, Marcus did something he had never done before. He asked to speak with Emma privately. They sat in the mansion's library, surrounded by thousands of books that reached from floor to ceiling. Marcus looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Miss Emma," Marcus began, his voice low and serious, "I need to tell you something, but I need you to promise you won't tell anyone we had this conversation. Not your father, not David. No one." Emma's stomach tightened. "Marcus, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I don't have proof yet, but something isn't right with Mr. David. I've seen him going places he shouldn't go, meeting people late at night. And twice now, I've seen him with a woman. A woman who isn't you." Emma felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. "What? No, that's impossible. David loves me. He's probably just meeting with clients or—" "Miss Emma," Marcus interrupted gently, "I know you don't want to hear this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've worked for your family for 20 years, and I've learned to trust my gut. Something feels wrong. I just wanted you to know in case I'm right." Emma stood up, her hands shaking. "You are wrong, Marcus. David would never cheat on me. Never. You don't know him like I do." Marcus nodded sadly. "I hope you're right, Miss Emma. I truly do. But please just be careful. Watch for anything unusual. That's all I ask." Emma left the library feeling confused and angry. How dare Marcus say such things about David? David, who loved her, who was going to marry her in less than 2 weeks. But that night, as Emma lay in bed next to David while he slept, she couldn't stop thinking about what Marcus had said. She looked at David's face in the moonlight coming through the window. He looked peaceful, innocent. No, Emma thought firmly, Marcus is wrong. He has to be wrong. The next week flew by in a blur of final wedding preparations. Emma was so busy with flowers and seating charts and menu tastings that she barely had time to think about Marcus's warning. Until the morning of the wedding. Emma woke up at 6 a.m. in the hotel's bridal suite. Today was the day. In 6 hours, she would walk down the aisle and become Mrs. David Chen. Her bridesmaids, 5 of her closest friends, arrived at 7 with breakfast and champagne. They helped Emma into her gorgeous dress, did her makeup, and styled her hair in soft curls with tiny white flowers woven through them. Emma looked at herself in the mirror. She looked like a princess from a storybook. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. So why did she feel so nervous? At 11 a.m., Emma's father came to the bridal suite to see her before the ceremony. Robert's eyes filled with tears when he saw his daughter in her wedding dress. "Your mother would be so proud," Robert said, his voice cracking. "You look just like her." They hugged, and Emma felt some of her nervousness melt away. Everything was going to be fine. She was just having normal wedding day jitters. At 11:30 a.m., it was time to go down to the hotel's parking garage where the special wedding car was waiting. The plan was for Marcus to drive Emma and her father around the block a few times. A tradition in Emma's family, before bringing them to the front entrance where Emma would walk down the aisle at exactly noon. Marcus was waiting by the car, a long white limousine decorated with white ribbons and roses. But when Emma saw his face, her stomach dropped. He looked scared. "Miss Emma," Marcus said quietly, pulling her aside while her bridesmaids and father were distracted. "I need you to trust me right now. Don't ask questions. Just do exactly what I say." "Marcus, what?" "Please," Marcus interrupted, his voice urgent. "Hide in the trunk. Right now. Don't let anyone see you. Stay quiet no matter what you hear. I'll explain everything later, but right now you need to hide. Please, Miss Emma. Trust me." Emma's heart was racing. This was crazy. She was supposed to get married in 20 minutes. But the look in Marcus's eyes, he was terrified. Against every logical thought in her head, Emma nodded. Marcus quickly opened the trunk of the limousine. Get in. I'll leave it slightly open so you can breathe. Don't make a sound. Emma climbed into the trunk, her huge dress bunching up around her. It was dark and cramped and smelled like metal and carpet cleaner. Marcus closed the trunk until it was almost shut. Just a tiny crack of light showing through. What's going on? Emma heard her father ask from somewhere outside. Just checking something on the car, Mr. Richardson, Marcus replied, his voice steady. We'll be ready in just a moment. Emma lay there in the darkness, her heart pounding, her mind racing with questions. What was happening? Why did she need to hide? Was Marcus crazy? Should she just get out right now? And then she heard voices. Male voices. One of them was David. Emma's whole body went stiff. She pressed her eye to the crack in the trunk, trying to see. There he was, David, her fiancé, standing about 15 feet away near a concrete pillar. He was on his phone, his back to the limousine. Yeah, I'll be a rich man by tonight, David said into the phone, laughing. The old man's going to make me a partner as soon as I marry his daughter. And with the way his health is going, I'll probably inherit everything within a year. Emma felt like ice water had been poured down her back. What did David just say? Then a woman appeared from behind the pillar. A woman Emma had never seen before. Beautiful with long dark hair and... oh God! She was pregnant. Very pregnant. David hung up his phone and immediately pulled the woman into a kiss. A long, deep kiss. Emma's hands flew to her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Don't worry, the pregnant woman said when they finally broke apart. After today, you'll be a rich man. Then we can finally be together. You, me, and our baby. The world stopped spinning. Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. David kissed the woman again. I can't wait to be done with this charade. Emma's nice enough, but she's so boring. And her father, God, the man won't shut up about his dead wife. But it'll all be worth it when I get control of Richardson Industries. The woman laughed. You're terrible. I love it. I love you too, David said. Now I've got to go. Time to marry a rich girl and secure our future. They kissed one more time, and then the pregnant woman walked away toward the elevator. David straightened his tie, checked his reflection in a car window, and headed back toward the hotel lobby, whistling. Emma lay in the trunk, her beautiful wedding dress crumpled around her, tears streaming down her face. Her whole world shattered into a million pieces. Everything had been a lie. Everything. David didn't love her. He loved her money. He had gotten another woman pregnant. He was planning to take over her father's company. He was using her, and she had almost married him. Outside the trunk, Emma heard her father's voice. Where's Emma? Marcus, where's my daughter? The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. She's in the car already, sir, Marcus said. Emma could hear the strain in his voice. She asked for a moment alone to compose herself. Bride nerves. Oh, Robert said, sounding relieved. Of course. My poor sunshine. Well, we should get going then. Emma heard car doors open and close. The engine started. The car began to move. They were driving away from the hotel. Away from the wedding. Away from David. Emma lay in the darkness of the trunk, her mind spinning, her heart breaking, wondering what happened now. How did Marcus know? Where were they going? What was she supposed to do? Her perfect life, her perfect wedding, her perfect fiancé. None of it had been real. And somehow Marcus had known. He had saved her from making the biggest mistake of her life. But the question remained, what came next? The car continued driving through the city, and Emma realized something terrifying. Her father was still in the car, which meant he still didn't know what David really was. He still thought his daughter was about to marry a good man. Emma needed to tell him the truth. But how? How do you tell your father that the man he trusted, the man he was about to make a partner in his company, was a lying, cheating con artist? And what about the wedding? Right now, 500 guests were sitting in that ballroom, waiting for a bride who wasn't coming. What about David? When he realized Emma was gone, what would he do? Emma's mind raced with all these questions as the car drove on, taking her somewhere unknown, away from the wedding that would never happen, away from the life she thought she knew. Through the crack in the trunk, Emma could see the city streets passing by. They were heading away from the fancy downtown area, toward the older part of the city where Emma rarely went. Where was Marcus taking her? And how much more of the truth was about to come crashing down on her? The limousine continued driving through the streets for what felt like forever to Emma. Her legs were cramping in the tight space of the trunk, and her beautiful wedding dress, the one that cost more than most people's cars, was getting wrinkled and dirty against the rough carpet. But Emma didn't care about the dress anymore. She didn't care about anything except the horrible truth she had just discovered. David didn't love her. He never had. Everything, every kiss, every "I love you," every romantic gesture, had all been an act, a performance, a con game to steal her father's money and company. Fresh tears rolled down Emma's cheeks, ruining the makeup her bridesmaids had spent an hour perfecting. Through the crack in the trunk, Emma could see they were now in a part of the city she barely recognized. Old brick buildings, small shops with faded signs. This definitely wasn't the fancy downtown area where the Grand Rose Hotel stood. Finally, after about 20 minutes of driving, the car slowed down and pulled into what looked like an old parking lot behind a small diner. The engine turned off. Emma heard the car doors open. Her father's voice came through, confused and worried. "Marcus, why are we here? Where's Emma? What's going on? The wedding was supposed to start 15 minutes ago. My phone is ringing non-stop." "Mr. Richardson," Marcus said, his voice steady but serious. "I need you to stay calm. There's something you need to know. Something about Mr. David." "What about David?" "Marcus, I don't understand what—" "Please, sir, just give me one moment." Emma heard footsteps approaching the trunk. Then, gently, Marcus opened it all the way. Light flooded in, making Emma squint. She saw Marcus's kind face looking down at her, full of concern and sadness. "It's safe now, Miss Emma," Marcus said softly, offering his hand to help her out. "Your father needs to know the truth." Emma took Marcus's hand and climbed out of the trunk awkwardly, her massive dress catching on everything. When she finally stood up, she saw her father standing a few feet away, his face completely white with shock. "Emma, sunshine, what on earth? Why were you in the trunk? What's happening? You should be at your wedding." Robert's hands were shaking as he leaned heavily on his cane. Emma opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. How could she tell him? How could she break her father's heart by revealing that the man he trusted, the man he thought of like a son, was a monster? Marcus stepped forward. "Mr. Richardson, there's no easy way to say this. Mr. David has been lying to all of us. He doesn't love Emma. He's been using her to get access to your company and your money." Robert's face turned from white to red. "That's ridiculous. Marcus, what are you talking about? David loves my daughter. He's a good man. He's been helping me run the company. This is crazy talk. Dad." Emma finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Marcus is telling the truth." Robert turned to look at his daughter, and Emma saw her father's eyes, the eyes that had always looked at her with such love and pride, now filled with confusion and fear. "Sunshine, what do you mean? What happened?" Emma took a shaky breath. "I saw him, Dad, just now in the parking garage at the hotel. David was with another woman, pregnant woman. They kissed, and I heard him talking on the phone. He said he was marrying me to get your money. He called our marriage a charade. He said I was boring. He said—" Emma's voice broke, and she couldn't continue. The tears came harder now, and suddenly her father was there, pulling her into his arms despite his bad knees and his cane. "Oh, my sunshine," Robert whispered, his own voice cracking. "My poor, sweet sunshine." They stood there in the parking lot behind the old diner, holding each other while Emma cried into her father's shoulder. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the shattered dreams came pouring out. Marcus stood nearby, giving them privacy but staying close in case they needed him. After a few minutes, Emma pulled back and wiped her eyes. How did you know, Marcus? How did you know about David? Marcus sighed deeply. I started noticing things about 3 weeks ago. Small things at first. Mr. David would tell you he was working late at the office, but I saw him going to expensive restaurants with a woman. He would say he was meeting with clients, but I followed him once. I'm sorry, Miss Emma, I know that was wrong. And he went to an apartment building in the suburbs. Not a business meeting at all. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Robert asked, his voice a mix of anger and hurt. I tried, sir, Marcus said quietly. I tried to warn Miss Emma a few days ago, but I didn't have solid proof, just suspicions. And I knew how much you both cared about Mr. David. I knew you wouldn't want to believe me without proof. So I've been watching him carefully, trying to find evidence. And this morning? Emma asked. This morning, I overheard him on the phone in the hotel lobby before you came downstairs. He was talking to someone, probably that woman, about how everything was going according to plan, how he'd be rich by tonight, how stupid the Richardson family was for trusting him. That's when I knew I had to stop the wedding, but I didn't know how. I couldn't just tell you in front of everyone. I needed you to see the truth for yourself. So you told Emma to hide in the trunk? Robert said, understanding dawning on his face. Marcus nodded. I knew Mr. David often went to that parking garage to make private phone calls. He thought no one knew about it. I gambled that he might go there this morning, and I was right. I needed Miss Emma to see him with her own eyes, to hear him with her own ears, because otherwise I wouldn't have believed it, Emma finished. Even if you told me, even if you showed me pictures, I would have made excuses for him. I would have convinced myself there was some explanation. Exactly, Marcus said sadly. Robert suddenly looked very old and very tired. He stumbled slightly, and both Marcus and Emma rushed to steady him. Dad, are you okay? Emma asked, frightened. I'm fine, sunshine. This is a lot to take in. Robert looked at Marcus with watery eyes. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for protecting my daughter. You saved her from making a terrible mistake. I would do anything for this family, Mr. Richardson. You know that. Robert nodded, then turned to Emma. We need to call the wedding off. Right now. And we need to deal with David. Emma's stomach twisted. What do you mean, deal with him? A look came over her father's face that Emma had never seen before. Cold, hard, and dangerous. This was the face of a man who had built a business empire from nothing. This was the face of a man you did not want as your enemy. David Chun made a very big mistake, Robert said quietly. He thought he could use my daughter. He thought he could steal from my company. He thought I was a weak old man he could manipulate. He was wrong on all counts. But Dad, what are we going to do? There are 500 people at that hotel right now waiting for a wedding. David is probably going crazy wondering where I am. And what about the company? You made him vice president. He has access to all our business accounts and... Emma, stop, Robert said firmly. Take a breath. We're going to handle this, but we need to be smart about it. Marcus, give me your phone. Marcus handed over his cell phone, and Robert immediately dialed a number. James? It's Robert Richardson. I need you to do something for me right now, and I mean right now. Freeze all access to our company accounts. Every single one. Change all the passwords. Lock David Chun out of every system. He doesn't get to touch a single penny of Richardson Industries money. Yes, I know what time it is. I don't care if it's Saturday. I don't care if you're at a wedding. This is an emergency. Good man. Call me when it's done. Robert hung up and made another call. Sarah? Robert Richardson. I need you to contact everyone at the Grand Rose Hotel and tell them the wedding is canceled. Family emergency. Return all the gifts. Refund the deposits if possible. Yes, I know there are hundreds of people there. Figure it out. That's why I pay you. No, I don't want to make a statement. Just handle it. Emma watched her father make call after call, his voice growing stronger with each one. He called the company's lawyers. He called the board of directors. He called his accountant. Within 15 minutes, her father had essentially locked David out of everything. There, Robert said with grim satisfaction. By the time David realizes what's happening, he won't have access to a single thing. No company accounts, no passwords, no authority. Nothing. But Dad, Emma said nervously, what if he comes after us? What if he gets violent or... He won't, Robert said confidently. Con artists like David are cowards at heart. They only attack when they think they have the advantage. Once they realize they've lost, they run. Trust me, sunshine. I've dealt with men like him before in business. As if on cue, Marcus's phone rang. Robert looked at the screen and smiled coldly. It's David, he said. Should I answer? Yes, Emma said, surprising herself with the firmness in her own voice. Put it on speaker. I want to hear what he has to say. Robert answered the call and put it on speakerphone. Emma. David's voice came through, and he sounded panicked. Emma, where are you? The wedding was supposed to start half an hour ago. There are hundreds of people here asking questions. Your father isn't answering his phone. What's going on? Robert's voice came out cold as ice. Hello, David. There was a pause on the other end. Mr. Richardson? Where's Emma? Why isn't she here? Is she okay? Emma is perfectly fine, Robert said. She's standing right next to me. We're having a very interesting conversation about you. Another pause, longer this time. When David spoke again, his voice had changed. Less panicked, more careful. I don't understand. What kind of conversation? The kind of conversation where we discuss your pregnant girlfriend, Robert said simply. Emma heard David's sharp intake of breath through the phone. I don't know what you're talking about, David said, but his voice shook. There's no pregnant girlfriend. Emma. Baby, I don't know what someone told you, but I saw you, Emma shouted, all her hurt and anger pouring out. I saw you with her in the parking garage. I heard you. You called me boring. You said marrying me was a charade. You said you were doing this for money. I heard everything. Silence on the other end. The kind of silence that means someone has been caught and they know it. When David spoke again, his voice had changed completely. The warm, loving tone was gone. Now he sounded cold and calculating. Fine, David said flatly. You want the truth? Here's the truth. Yes, there's another woman. Yes, I was marrying you for your money. Did you really think I loved you, Emma? You're a spoiled rich girl who's never had to work for anything in her life. You're boring, you're naive. And honestly, kissing you was like kissing a statue. Emma flinched as if she'd been slapped. Her father's hand tightened on her shoulder. David continued, his voice cruel now. Your father is a senile old man, and you're a pathetic little princess. I've been planning this for months. I already have access to half your company accounts. By Monday, I'll have transferred millions to offshore accounts you'll never find. You can cancel the wedding, but you can't undo what I've already done. I'm going to take everything from you, and there's nothing you can. Actually, David, Robert interrupted calmly, you have access to exactly nothing. While you've been ranting, I've had our IT department lock you out of every single system. Every account is frozen. Every password is changed. You couldn't access a penny of Richardson Industries money if your life depended on it. More silence. Then, you're bluffing. Try logging in, Robert said. I'll wait. They could hear typing sounds through the phone. Then frustrated cursing. More typing. More cursing. What did you do? David screamed. You can't do this. I have contracts. I have rights. I'm the vice president of... You're fired, Robert said simply. Effective immediately. And if you try to set foot in Richardson Industries again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Furthermore, my lawyers are currently reviewing every single transaction you've made in the past 6 months. If we find any evidence of theft or embezzlement, and I suspect we will, you'll be facing criminal charges. Do you understand what I'm telling you? David? No response. I'm telling you that you picked the wrong family to con, Robert continued, his voice like steel. I'm telling you that you will never work in this industry again. I'm telling you that by the time I'm done, your name will be dirt in this city. I'm telling you that you should take your pregnant girlfriend and whatever money you have left and disappear. Because if I ever see your face again, I will destroy you so completely that—" The phone call ended. David had hung up. Robert handed the phone back to Marcus. "Well," he said, "that felt good." Despite everything, Emma found herself smiling a little. Her father, her protective, loving father, had just verbally destroyed the man who had tried to use them. But the smile faded quickly as the reality of the situation hit her again. Her wedding was cancelled. Her fiancé was a con artist. Everyone in the city would know what happened. The gossip, the pity, the embarrassment. "Dad," Emma said quietly, "what do I do now? Everyone knows I was supposed to get married today. Everyone will want to know what happened. I'll be humiliated. They'll all feel sorry for me or think I'm stupid for not seeing what David really was." Robert pulled his daughter close. "Listen to me, sunshine. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing. David is a professional con artist. He's probably done this before. He was good at pretending. Even I believed him, and I've been in business for 40 years. You're not stupid. You're not naive. You're just a kind person who wanted to see the good in someone. That's not a weakness, Emma. That's a strength." "It doesn't feel like a strength right now," Emma said, tears falling again. "I know," Robert said gently. "But you're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together. And someday, you'll find someone who truly deserves you. Someone who loves you for who you are, not what you have." Marcus cleared his throat. "If I may say something, Miss Emma?" Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. "In the 20 years I've worked for your family, I've watched you grow from a little girl into a remarkable young woman. You're kind to everyone, even people who work for you. You volunteer your time to help others. You actually care about making the world better. Those qualities are rare, Miss Emma, especially in someone who could easily just live off her family's money and do nothing." Marcus continued, "Mr. David didn't deserve you, not even close. And yes, people will talk. People always talk. But the people who matter, the people who really know you, they'll know the truth. They'll know you did nothing wrong." Emma looked at Marcus, this man who had been a constant presence in her life for so long, and felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything, for protecting me, for seeing the truth when I was too blind to see it myself." "It's my honor, Miss Emma." Robert's phone, Marcus's phone, rang again. Robert looked at the screen. "It's James, our IT director." He answered. "James? Yes, I see. All of it? And you found evidence? I want copies of everything sent to our lawyers immediately. Good work. Thank you." Robert hung up and looked at Emma with grim satisfaction. David was stealing from the company. James found electronic transfers going to offshore accounts over the past 3 months. Almost $2 million. Emma gasped. $2 million? He's been siphoning money slowly, probably thinking no one would notice until it was too late. But now we have evidence. Real hard evidence. David Chun is going to prison. Suddenly, Emma felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that David would face justice. Sadness that she had been so wrong about him. Anger at being used. But also, something else. Something that felt almost like freedom. She had been so focused on the wedding, on being a good wife, on planning her future with David that she had almost forgotten to think about what SHE wanted. What Emma wanted, separate from anyone else's expectations. "Dad," Emma said slowly, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, sunshine. If David hadn't been a con artist, if he had been a real person who actually loved me, would you have been happy? About the wedding, I mean." Robert looked surprised by the question. "Of course I would have been happy. Why do you ask?" Emma bit her lip. "Because I don't think I would have been happy. I mean." Now Robert looked very surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Emma struggled to find the words. "I think maybe I was so caught up in the idea of getting married, of having the fairy tale wedding, that I didn't stop to think about whether David was the right person. I don't think I even really knew him. We dated for 6 months, but we never talked about important things. We never disagreed about anything. We never had a real conversation about our future beyond the wedding itself. Emma looked at her father, tears still on her cheeks but a new clarity in her eyes. I think maybe Marcus saved me from two mistakes. Not just from marrying a con artist, but from marrying someone I didn't truly love. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You might be right, sunshine. And that's a very mature thing to realize. I want to take some time, Emma said. Time to figure out who I am, separate from being Emma Richardson, daughter of Robert Richardson. Time to travel, maybe, to see the world, to do things I've never done before. A smile spread across Robert's face. That sounds like an excellent idea. Really? You're not disappointed. Disappointed? Emma, you're 26 years old. You should be out living your life, not rushing to settle down just because that's what people expect. I should have seen that before. I was so eager to see you happy and taken care of that I didn't stop to ask if marriage was what you really wanted right now. Emma hugged her father tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sunshine. More than anything in this world. They stood there in the parking lot behind the old diner, holding each other, while Marcus watched over them with a small smile on his face. After a while, Robert pulled back. So, what do you say we get out of here? This parking lot isn't exactly fitting for a woman in a wedding dress. Emma looked down at her dress, wrinkled, dirty, and rumpled from being in a trunk, and started to laugh. Once she started, she couldn't stop. The absurdity of it all. The fancy dress, the canceled wedding, the parking lot behind a diner. It was all so ridiculous. Her father started laughing too. Even Marcus chuckled. Come on, Robert said. Let's go home. We'll order pizza, change into comfortable clothes, and figure out what comes next. Can we watch bad movies? Emma asked, still giggling. As many as you want, sunshine. They got back in the limousine. Emma in the back seat this time, not the trunk, and Marcus drove them home to the Richardson mansion. As they drove, Emma looked out the window at the city passing by. Somewhere out there, David was probably panicking, trying to figure out how to salvage his plan. Somewhere out there, 500 confused wedding guests were leaving the Grand Rose Hotel. Somewhere out there, her bridesmaids were probably calling her phone nonstop. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that Emma was safe. She was with her father and Marcus, the two people who had truly protected her. And she was free. Free from David's lies. Free from a marriage that would have been wrong. Free to figure out who she really was and what she really wanted. The sun was setting as they pulled up to the mansion. Emma climbed out of the car, her ridiculous wedding dress trailing behind her. Marcus, Emma said before going inside. I'm giving you a raise. A big one. Marcus smiled. That's not necessary, Miss Emma. Yes, it is. You saved my life today. Not literally, maybe, but you saved me from ruining it. Thank you. Marcus nodded, touched. You're welcome, Miss Emma. Inside the mansion, Emma went upstairs and changed out of her wedding dress. She hung it in the closet. She'd decide what to do with it later. Maybe donate it. Maybe burn it. She'd figure it out. She put on her most comfortable pajamas, pulled her hair into a messy bun, and washed all the makeup off her face. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw a different person than the one who had woken up that morning. That Emma had been nervous, excited, ready to become Mrs. David Chun. This Emma was just Emma, and maybe that was enough. Downstairs, Emma found her father in the living room. He had changed into comfortable clothes too and was already on the phone ordering pizza. Extra cheese, extra pepperoni, he said into the phone, then looked at Emma. What else do you want? Breadsticks, Emma said. And those cinnamon dessert things. And breadsticks and cinnamon sticks, Robert told the phone. Yes, that'll be all. Thank you. He hung up and patted the couch next to him. Emma sat down, curling up against her father's shoulder like she used to do when she was a little girl. We're going to be okay, aren't we? Emma asked quietly. We're going to be better than okay, Robert promised. We're going to be great. And somehow, sitting there in the mansion with her father, still in shock from the craziest day of her life, Emma believed him. The doorbell rang 40 minutes later with their pizza. Emma and Robert ate the whole thing while watching old comedy movies, laughing until their sides hurt. Around midnight, Emma finally checked her phone. She had 247 missed calls, 189 text messages, and countless voicemails. She turned the phone off. Tomorrow she would deal with the aftermath. Tomorrow, she would talk to her friends, explain to the wedding guests what happened, and probably cry some more. But tonight, she was just going to eat pizza with her dad, and be grateful that she had escaped the biggest mistake of her life. As Emma was getting ready for bed, her father knocked on her door. "Come in," Emma called. Robert came in and sat on the edge of her bed, just like he used to do when she was little. "I just got off the phone with our lawyers," he said. "They found evidence that David has done this before. 3 times, actually. He finds wealthy families, gets close to them, steals what he can, and disappears. He's wanted in 2 other states." Emma's stomach turned. "So I was just another target." "Yes, but you were the target who got away. And because of the evidence we have, the police will be able to arrest him. He won't be able to do this to anyone else." Emma nodded slowly. "That's good, I guess. At least something good came out of this." Robert reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Emma's ear. "You know what else came out of this? You learned to trust your instincts. You learned who your real friends are. And you learned that you're stronger than you thought. Those are valuable lessons, sunshine." "They're expensive lessons," Emma said with a sad smile. "The best lessons usually are," Robert agreed. "Now get some sleep. Tomorrow is a new day." "Dad," Emma said as he was leaving. "Thank you for believing me, for protecting me, for being the best father anyone could ask for." Robert's eyes got misty. "Being your father has been the greatest joy of my life, Emma. Don't you ever forget that." After he left, Emma lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about David, about how convincing he had been, about how close she had come to marrying him. She thought about Marcus, about his loyalty and his courage in warning her even when he knew she might not believe him. She thought about her father, about how quickly he had sprung into action to protect her. And she thought about herself, about the future that now lay ahead of her, uncertain but full of possibility. Emma didn't know what would come next. Maybe she'd travel the world like she mentioned. Maybe she'd go back to school. Maybe she'd throw herself into her charity work. Maybe she'd do all of those things or none of them. But whatever she did, she would do it as herself. Not as someone's fiancé or wife. Not as what other people expected her to be. Just Emma. And as she drifted off to sleep, Emma Richardson realized something important. She didn't need a fairy tale wedding or a Prince Charming to be happy. She just needed to be true to herself. 3 weeks later, Emma was sitting in her office at Richardson Industries when her assistant buzzed her. "Miss Richardson, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important." "Who is it?" Emma asked, not really paying attention as she reviewed a grant proposal for a children's hospital. "His name is Officer Daniel Martinez. He's with the police." Emma's head snapped up. "Send him in." A young police officer came in, holding his hat respectfully. "Miss Richardson, I wanted to update you personally. David Chun was arrested this morning in Mexico. He'll be extradited back here to face charges. Thanks to the evidence your company provided. He's looking at 10 to 15 years in prison for theft, fraud, and embezzlement." Emma nodded slowly. She had expected to feel satisfaction at this news, maybe even joy. Instead, she just felt tired. "Thank you, officer," she said quietly. "There's something else," Officer Martinez said. "The woman he was with, the pregnant woman? Her name is Melissa Torres. Turns out she's been working with David for years. They run these cons together. She's not actually pregnant. It's a fake belly. They use it to make the con more believable." Emma's mouth fell open. It's fake? The whole pregnancy is fake." "Yes, ma'am. They've done this at least 4 times that we know of. David gets close to a wealthy woman. Melissa pretends to be the other woman to add urgency to the situation, and they steal as much as they can before disappearing." "Wow," Emma breathed. That's, wow. After Officer Martinez left, Emma sat at her desk for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. Then, for the first time since the wedding day, she started to laugh. The pregnancy had been fake. The whole dramatic scene in the parking garage had been staged. David and Melissa were professional con artists who had done this multiple times. It was awful. It was terrible. It was the most embarrassing thing that had ever happened to her. But it was also over. David was going to prison. Emma was free. And she had the rest of her life ahead of her. She picked up her phone and called her father. Dad, I've made a decision. I want to start a new division at Richardson Industries. One that helps other victims of con artists and fraud. We have the resources to make a real difference. What do you think? She could hear the smile in her father's voice. I think that's a wonderful idea, Sunshine. I'm proud of you. After she hung up, Emma walked over to her office window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there were probably other con artists like David, looking for their next target. But also somewhere out there were people like Marcus, loyal, honest, and willing to do the right thing even when it was difficult. And somewhere out there was Emma's future. Uncertain, unplanned, but entirely her own. Emma smiled. She was going to be just fine. Emma stood at the airport, her passport in hand, looking up at the departure board. Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, London. So many places to go. So many things to see. Her father had encouraged her to take a year off, to travel, to find herself. The new fraud victim support division at Richardson Industries was up and running, managed by a team Emma had carefully selected. Everything was in order. Emma was finally free to just be. As she walked toward her gate, she had decided on Paris first. Emma thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago. The woman who was about to marry a man she barely knew. The woman who was more concerned with having the perfect wedding than having a perfect life. That woman seemed like a stranger now. Emma had learned so much in the past 6 months. She had learned that sometimes the people you trust most can let you down, and sometimes the people you barely notice, like Marcus, can save your life. She had learned that her father's love was unconditional and unshakable. She had learned that she was stronger than she thought. And most importantly, she had learned that she didn't need anyone else to complete her. She was already complete all on her own. As Emma boarded the plane, she looked back one more time at the city where everything had fallen apart 6 months ago. Then she smiled, turned forward, and walked toward her future, whatever that might be. The woman who had hidden in a trunk on her wedding day was gone. In her place was Emma Richardson, traveler, philanthropist, survivor, and most importantly, herself. And that was the best thing she could be. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel to support our growth. We post amazing stories like this every single day. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let us know in the comments what you thought of Emma's journey. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? We love hearing from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.